international borders must not be changed by force. This is a blindingly obvious bedrock of all of our security arrangements, to which President Trump inexplicably seems to pay no attention whatsoever.
So as you know, the Prime Minister's off to Washington to act as a political shield, really, for Volodymyr Zelensky, along with 6 other European leaders. Let's talk to Leigh Turner, former British ambassador to Ukraine and author of Lessons in Diplomacy, Politics, Power and Parties. Leigh, good morning.
Morning, Rosie.
This is a challenge, isn't it, for Keir Starmer? How does he manage today, all those personalities, to get the best interests for Ukraine and also for the United Kingdom?
It's going to be a hell of a day in Washington, isn't it? What a unprecedented arrangement. I must admit, after the catastrophe of Putin steamrollering Trump in Alaska, I was actually cheered on Sunday to hear that Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz, the German leaders, plus other EU leaders, are all going to Washington to support Zelensky today. It's a spectacular show of support that really illustrates how important the outcome of this war is for all of our security, whether we're on the mainland of Europe or in the UK. And they will have 2 key principles they're wanting to emphasize, I would guess, if I was writing Sir Keir Starmer's briefing. The first would be the importance of the principle that international borders must not be changed by force. This is a blindingly obvious bedrock of all of our security arrangements, to which President Trump inexplicably seems to pay no attention whatsoever. But there's a guy called Markus Sakna, who's the Estonian foreign minister, and he said, if borders can be changed by force, none of us are safe. And then the other thing that they'll be wanting to talk about is security guarantees. All of a sudden, Steve Witkoff, President Trump's all-purpose envoy, has suddenly announced that, oh yes, the Russians have agreed to an Article 5 type protection for Ukraine, whatever that means, and that the US could somehow offer Article 5 protection. Article 5 is the article of the NATO treaty that says that an attack on any member of NATO is an attack on all of them. And of course, if Ukraine were to get a guarantee like that, that NATO members, including the US, would defend them in the event of Russia attacking in the future, that would be enormously significant. But nobody's heard about this until yesterday. So I think they'll want to take a really close look at that.
And understand a bit more about what these supposed security guarantees are on offer from the United States. Just talking about borders changing. I mean, Ukraine has lost 20% of its territory since the start of Russia's invasion. We are hearing reports that Donald Trump may try to pressure Zelensky today to say you need to give up the entirety of the Donbass region. That would be even more land. If that is the offer that's put on the table to Zelensky, what can he actually counter it with?
Zelensky has said repeatedly that he's not going to agree to give up any land. There's several different aspects to this, Rosie. The first is that there's a difference, as that UK minister was saying that you quoted on the news, between recognizing that some part of occupied Ukraine is Russian territory, recognizing that it's under Russian sovereignty, which is what Trump appears to be talking about with Crimea. And that sets an enormously damaging precedent, because not only would Russia be encouraged to think they'd won the war and to attack again, but of course they might attack some other country, or other countries around the world would think, well, the US is prepared to recognize Russian sovereignty over, say, Crimea. Why don't we attack our neighbors? And that would really create a very dangerous security precedent for the whole world. Now, there's another thing, which is that you say, well, that land is temporarily occupied, and we accept that Russia is temporarily occupying it, but we will not recognize any change of sovereignty. And there's a great precedent for that, which is the Baltic states, which were occupied first by Nazi Germany and then by the Soviet Union. And the UK and US never recognized that those Baltic states were part of the Soviet Union for over 50 years. So that might be one way forward that could give Zelensky a way out to say, OK, we will accept that some of Ukraine is temporarily occupied, but without accepting there's been a change of sovereignty.
Because what none of these, what none of these Western countries want is the illusion of a pretty ugly deal to make an aggressor go away by effectively paying him off. I mean, Putin can rub his hands and say, well, I've got the rewards here.
That's right. Why should Ukraine reward Russia for invading it? It's not very encouraging, is it?
But might the US facilitate that reward?
Well, the US, for reasons which are not clear under President Trump, is being fantastically pro-Russian in everything it does. Compare the treatment that Vladimir Putin received in Anchorage with the treatment that Vladimir Zelensky received in February in the White House. And why the US is so keen to give away Ukrainian land to Russia is a great mystery for all of us.
It's something we haven't really spoken about, but last time the US officials, and this might sound very trivial, so forgive me if you think this, but last time the US officials were very angry that Zelensky had turned up to the White House in his uniform, not in a suit. Might we see, I mean, if you were sort of still the ambassador to Ukraine, what advice would you be giving to Zelensky in terms of what he says, but also how he presents himself?
I think it is. You're right, Rosie. It is trivial, and I was quite shocked actually in the White House in February. It was actually a news reporter who attacked Zelensky for not wearing a suit. Of course, there've been many other people who've appeared in the White House not in a suit, including Elon Musk, for example. Zelensky was, not surprisingly, pretty confused by this. I would advise him to wear what he always wears and sod the consequences.
Leigh, thank you so much. Leigh Turner, the former British ambassador to Ukraine and author of Lessons in Diplomacy, Politics, Power and Parties. That meeting starts at 3. We'll have full analysis of it in the build-up and in the aftermath here on Times Radio.
Leigh quoted my own personal motto as well there.
Yes, I witness that every day.
Wear what you like and sod the consequences. I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I kept meaning to ask someone over the course of the morning, because it obviously doesn't matter.
But it did matter to some of those Americans in the room.
It was pretty high in the coverage of that. Vance mentioned it himself. It was a lot of the MAGA the Trump apologists afterwards are going, this guy couldn't even come to the White House. He couldn't be bothered to show respect. So, but I feel Zelensky's gone through the entire war looking like he does.
He's not going to change.
I can't imagine he would change, but we'll keep an eye on that, obviously, to see if he does.
I'm very glad that I'm able to accompany you and other European leaders for the meeting tomorrow that we do have with the US President in the White House. Since the beginning of Russia's brutal invasion, Europe has been at Ukraine's side, united, and we will support you for as long as it takes, for just and lasting peace. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. Ukraine must be able to uphold its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. There can be no limitations on Ukrainian armed forces, be it cooperation with or other third countries or assistance from other third countries, no limitations for the Ukrainian armed forces. As I've often said, Ukraine must become a steel porcupine, undigestible for potential invaders.